Yes, it is extremely possible to plan your podcast episode in 30 minutes. That was not clickbait. And no, this approach does not lack coherence, quality, or even the strategy behind your podcast episodes. All you need to do is fill in your specific touch points into my proven episode script outline that has gotten over 200,000 listeners and viewers engaged on my clients' channels with this specific approach. So in this video, you are going to learn exactly how to plan and outline and script your podcast episode for optimal reach, visibility, ease, and results depending on what lever your podcast is pushing in your business. This is the model that I use with my clients. Right now, I am producing 3 different YouTube podcast shows that are weekly episodes, and I feel like I've gotten this down to a science, okay? So without further ado, let's get into this outline. If you want to follow along with me in this episode and you want the episode script outline for yourself, I actually have 2 versions of this episode script outline in my free community that I am launching today. Yay! I have a free school community for my followers and listeners here on YouTube. You'll also notice over the months in this free community that I do monthly drops of photography and videography. I have Canva graphic design templates, and I also give you guys opportunity to join me on a monthly call where we can talk about any and all things content strategy, creation, and even podcast production. So if you are interested in that, it is completely free. The link to that is below. So the very first thing to consider when planning your podcast is your monthly cadence and your strategy. You could have a deeply ingrained content strategy that has to do with maybe an outline of some other creator has taught you. I teach my own version of a content strategy in my program, Solo Podcast Producer Blueprint, but you might have your own content strategy in mind that is very specific to your industry. Maybe you are doing content topics, or maybe you are focusing on the buyer stages and the problems and solutions associated with what you offer. That's kind of my thing. Or you're doing some sort of kind of forecasting that is maybe aligned with the times as an astrologer, or you're doing completely evergreen content that is educational and that would serve you long term because it is so searchable, but it's more broad topics that you are covering. So if you are a service provider or you're an educator, this strategy might look different for you, and there is no right way to do this. You and I have seen success across the board on YouTube. It doesn't matter what strategy you're using. Not everyone is using the same strategy who are successful, right? So you can make this look like whatever you want it to look like. I find that the most translatable strategy has to do with problems and solutions, as well as understanding the buyer stages through your content. So using those 2 filters to then create your content, right? And again, we're talking underlying strategy here. So we will get into the planning stage of content creation, but before, we just have to know what strategy we're using. So if you have no strategy and you're kind of open to hearing about a strategy that has worked for me and my clients, I'll tell you quickly about the strategy that I use. Instead of content pillars, I use problem and solution pillars. Now, you might think, okay, but my business only has one solution. That is correct, and that is actually accurate to what it is for most people. If you have one solution to your business and you think that you only have one problem associated with that solution, right? Your solution is the thing that solves that problem, you might be surprised. There's probably a lot more problems associated with that one solution. And all it takes is just getting a little bit more granular, a little bit more deep dive in your brain of what are the granular problems, even if it goes into more lifestyle. What are the granular problems people are dealing with when they don't have your solution? So this is where I start. I base it off of all of those problems, and I always tie it back to that one solution. But because these problems are different, they're speaking to different areas of life, they're speaking to different areas of experience, I can use any of these problems as the starting point to then lead people to the end point, which is my solution. The way that I lead people to my solution is through the buyer stages, which are problem aware, consideration, and conversion. So I do 2 pieces of content that are problem awareness. The problem awareness stage is very much speaking to the broader audience who might not even know they have a problem until they see your video. The consideration stage is where you can really highlight on your authority, talk about experiences, maybe client wins, case studies, things that really speak to why you are the best solution for the problem they're dealing with. So they are hyper aware, they're considering you as a solution. And lastly, the conversion stage is really where you are speaking about the offer as the life improvement What does life look like after your solution is in their hands? So that is a little rough overview of content strategy. If you have any further questions about how to really do this with your business, maybe you have a very specific kind of business and you have a very specific service and you want to cater it specifically to that, I totally understand. I work with some pretty niche market clients myself, so I would be happy to help you in the comments if you wanted to leave me one. Okay, so now that we understand strategy, now you have this foundation for your plan, right? We can't go into planning an episode unless we have this foundation that we understand and we can see in kind of a bird's eye view. I think it's best when things are laid out for the future. If we are planning a podcast episode and we're just solely looking at this one episode, it's really hard to see how it plays into the bigger whole of what you are trying to accomplish, what you're trying to communicate, and essentially, if you are a business owner, what your goal is for your podcast. So we have to do this foundational step first. The next step is to review your past month's top performing content. If you have it, if you don't have it, that is completely okay. This is a very small step, and it's basically just to inform you on what people are resonating with most when it comes to topic, right? So we just talked about a whole content strategy that relates one problem to your solution. So essentially, when you're tying all those episodes together from problem awareness to conversion stage, talking about one problem and leading people to your solution in that way, you're essentially talking about the same topic, but in a different way. So what's interesting about this is if you do this over the course of a month, for instance, if you have 4 to 5 content pieces that speak to each buyer stage, talking about that one problem solution, you're going to notice that over the course of the month, you might have people resonating with specific parts of what you speak about in terms of this problem and solution. Or you might find that other months did way better and it was a month that you talked only about X, right? It is really important to be informed on what your audience is resonating with most. Whether it's a content topic or maybe you have comments of people being like, hey, I loved this part, can you dive deeper? This stuff is gold. If you have commenters telling you what is helpful, what is not, and you're willing to capitalize on what is working and what is working for them, this is going to be a piece of cake and you are going to be able to inform yourself pretty quickly based on last month's performance, what you should focus on in the new month, and really let that be your compass. Sometimes you and I as podcasters, we don't know what is absolutely best for our audience. Our audience knows best and they will tell you in the comments, they will resonate and they'll like your video. They'll do all sorts of things to indicate to you that this was a good video. To get granular just for a second, just to teach you exactly what to pay attention to in YouTube if you are looking at metrics, the metrics that you should really be paying attention to are retention, which is also called average view duration in YouTube, and click-through rate. What do these two metrics tell us? Retention tells us how long people watched our video, right? It is the percentage viewed of the video based on how many people watched it. So retention is telling us how engaging we are. Whether it's us or the topic or the subject matter or how we express ourselves, retention can be a little bit of a whoa kind of metric to look at if you're not ready for it, but we are trying to look for anything over 40% with retention, okay? So that is industry average. It basically means like 40% of your video was watched by the people who clicked on it. And so when you think about, okay, 40%, that's not even 50%, that's horrible. It's actually industry average. So just think about it that way. Most people are going to see a dip in retention always with their videos, and that is completely natural. That is the way it goes. There are a lot of people who will click on your video and then be like, oh, I'm clicking out. And obviously we don't want to see that often, but that is a pretty normal thing to see in the back end. So just know that if you are seeing like these big dips, it's pretty normal, especially if you're a beginner, but pay attention to those videos over the past month that were above 40% retention. So let's get into click-through. Click-through rate, CTR, is explaining how many people clicked on your video based on the amount of impressions. So you will see in YouTube, it will say impressions click-through rate. And that is really a reflection of, okay, YouTube sent this video out to this many people. And that is really an indication of impressions. Impressions are only explaining how many times your video popped up on screen. And that could be multiple times for one person, right? So impressions tend to be really big compared to your other metrics, numbers on your video. But it just means that YouTube sent it out to this many people, and the percentage of the people that it sent it out to as an impression clicked on it. So what we are looking for with click-through is anything over 5%. Anything over 5% click-through rate is significant, and this is a huge reflection of your title and thumbnail. Why is that? Well, people are clicking on the video, and therefore your title, your thumbnail feels worth their while to click into, right? Okay, so this is what you're gonna want to review in the back end. If you have videos, if you're just starting out, no problem. So the next step is to build out your guardrails. So essentially by this point, you know your strategy. You understand the bird's eye view of maybe your podcast goal, and you're like, okay, this is how this is going to look. This is who I'm speaking to. This is why I want to do it this way, because I want to reach people where they're at. Whatever your strategy is, if you already have a strategy in mind, that is completely okay. But looking back at your top performing content of the past month is also a great way to do this, to just let you know and inform you of what topics are resonating with your audience, what commenters are saying, what things to look for, how long are people watching, and what are people clicking on? What do those titles have in them, the thumbnails? Write notes down of those winning content pieces, of what you notice, maybe common denominators. Just make sure you write them down so that you are informing yourself of what is doing well on your channel. So now we are building the guardrails. So if you are following along with the free resource that I mentioned in the beginning, if you haven't already, that is available for you in my free school community called Essence Essentials. It is the episode script outline that we are going through. I actually have 2 different versions of it in a spreadsheet and a document. So if you want to follow along with me, please feel free. But this is the formula, okay? We are first going to start the episode and plan out the episode with a hook. So your hook should really be either a bold statement, a question, a mini story, right? Something that is hooking in your viewer, your listener, to stick around. It should be bold, it should be kind of punchy, and it should really tie back into your title and thumbnail. It should really relate all back to that, okay? So always start with your hook. The next thing that we want to do after your hook is express the goal of content. So what is this piece? So this really is when people say, by the end of this video, or in this video, or in this podcast, right? It should really be a 1-sentence thing that really expresses the actual goal of the content. And this should be very, very tied to the title of the video, right? You don't want people clicking in, hearing your hook, and then hearing the goal of the video and being like, this is not what was promised to me when I saw the title and thumbnail. So just making sure that you have that rough idea of a title, even if you're going to complete it afterwards, you just always want to make sure that you know the goal of the video itself so that you can express that to your viewer actually in the episode. So after you express your hook, you're going to express the goal of content by saying, by the end of this video, you're going to learn XYZ, or in this video, you're going to learn XYZ. The next couple things that you want to express in your script are actually optional, and they are an introduction and a mini call to action. So let's start with the introduction. You can essentially introduce yourself in every single episode. I've seen, again, success across the board. The most success I've seen is with somebody who does this in every single episode. But it is not actually essential, and sometimes in the educational niche, a lot of people just want to know what to do. Sometimes it can be beneficial to introduce yourself and express who you are and what your mission is. Other times it's not as necessary. But I've seen success with both. So there's no right way to do it. If you want to introduce yourself, it's going to look like something like this. Welcome back to my channel where I teach blank, or where I blank, right? You're going to want to express that and that sentence. And this is really speaking to kind of your mission, your channel mission. Then you say, my name is blank, and then use some sort of authority-driven piece of you, right? Like, what do you have to where you can be speaking about this subject matter? It doesn't have to actually be that you're like a professional in this field or something like that. You can just say, my name is blank, I'm a blank, or I'm blank, right? Like you could say, I'm a strategist, I'm a teacher, I'm a astrologer, right? You also don't essentially have to say something that really builds on your authority. You could just say, I'm the person that blank. Like you could just describe what you are and what your personality brings to the table. And that is what the kind of introduction looks like. Now, in terms of a mini call to action, I say this should be 10 to 15 seconds at most, especially where this is placed in your episode. You just don't want to turn people away by deep diving into something you have going on that is a paid offer or something like that. A lot of people come to get value for free when they're listening to podcasts or they're coming to your YouTube videos. So make sure that you are respecting that this is a free platform. People are coming to gain value from you, but also, yes, if this is your business, then you should be giving calls to action and your offers and all that, but keep it short and sweet. And this is completely optional. Maybe in some episodes you don't have this, in some you do. But for instance, you probably noticed in the beginning of this video, I just let you guys know that there's a free community, free resource vault for you to get access to all of my free resources that I've accumulated over the years being a content marketing strategist. And that still is valuable, even though that probably went over 15 seconds. That's valuable because it is free. So a lot of the times I do recommend to my clients that the mini call to action in the beginning should be a free kind of offer. Maybe it's a free resource that will help them with the episode. And if you do want to talk about anything paid, that I believe is best towards the end of the video, but not always. If your community loves you, loves what you do, they are a part of your community, they will not mind if you speak about your paid offers in the beginning. But just make it super short, super sweet, 10 to 15 seconds of mentioning that right after your welcome introduction. Okay, so now we're in the meat of the episode. And this is all about your key points. You can have up to 5 key points per episode, but the more key points that you have, the more bogged down your video can be, especially if you're an educator and you're just throwing all this information at people. What I like to say is like 3 to 5, 5 being max key points that you want to talk through. And what I actually recommend, and this is what I do now. This is not how I started. I used to actually write way more detail into my key points, like as if it was a literal script. But I actually recommend that you just do a key point as in like a bullet point of something that you want to freely talk through. To me, it feels better to be more genuine when you're speaking on camera and just acknowledging the key point you wanted to talk through and speaking about it in your own way. I personally think this is the best way to get started, even if you feel uncomfortable at first, because it gets you comfortable speaking to a camera and speaking naturally, but also with your topic in mind. So it actually is like good practice in speaking about what you do and your points, like your expertise. So this is where the 3 to 5 key points come in. It can be way less. It could be more if you really want. I don't recommend it. But 3 to 5 key points talking through the major value. This is the value of your episode, the thing that all ties back up to the title and the promise, the goal of the content. Now, the last couple of things, one of them is more ingrained in the strategy and one of them is something I already mentioned. And what they are is an offer call to action and the next video call to action. So at the end of your video, once you've wrapped up your last key point, it's ideal to wrap up your last key point and have it somehow relate to an offer that you have that they can go further and deeper with you, personalize, right? Something similar to like personalization or something that gives them even more value, the value that they're really looking for. That is a great offer to have. And then there's the next video, right? So when I was talking about the mini offer call to action, that one was optional. This one I would say is also optional, but if you are a business owner, this is not optional, right? You have to be calling to action what you do, letting people know that there is more value to be had. You just came onto YouTube, did a video for free, telling people how to do something. Maybe it's like giving people more insight, more clarity. You did that all for free. And if they are still watching at the end of the video, they are the people who might convert to your offer, or at least take into account your free resource, get on your email list, and then eventually get into that offer that you do offer. So it's always good to, at the end of your video, call to action what you do as a business, right? If you're a service provider, the one-on-one consultations or something like that. Now, this next video call to action I said was ingrained in strategy, and that is correct. As you can tell with the strategy I explained in the beginning, my strategy has to do with the buyer stages, and I basically tell a story over the course of 4 to 5 content pieces that tie one problem to my solution, and I speak to people at different stages of the buyer journey in those 4 to 5 content pieces. So essentially, if I am making a consideration stage piece of content and the next stage is conversion, at the end of that video, I'm going to lead somebody to that conversion stage piece of content because I want them to go down that rabbit hole, aka down that storyline, so that they can get the most value that I have to offer. If you're not really following a strategy that has to do with problem and solution and buyer stages and all that, you can just tie the video that makes the most sense with the subject matter at the end of this video. So you're basically giving people the option of engaging into one of your offers, your paid offers first. And then you're like, hey, so if that is not for you and you just want to deep dive even more, like I have way more value, there's way more where this came from, right? I have way more value on my channel. You can check out this video here that I think will give you a lot of insight into the next steps of this process. That is how you would do a next video call to action. So we have now officially gone into exactly how to plan out your podcast episode. But what is missing here is in 30 minutes, right? So once you've created the guardrails of your hook, your goal of content, your introduction, your mini offer, your key points, your offer call to action, and your next video call to action, you basically now have 7 guardrails to fill in, right? Like you're basically just filling in the gaps with the concept, with the topic, with the strategy that you're choosing to then express yourself and your expertise through. This actually can be done in 30 minutes only when you create these guardrails for yourself. So definitely make sure that you get the episode script outline. I literally have 2 versions, which are, one is a spreadsheet and it is very much ingrained into that whole strategy that I talked through. And I actually outline the strategy that I use in that outline template. If you don't have a strategy at all, that's probably your best bet. And then I also outlined a document in case you'd rather just use like a written document to script out your episodes. I totally get that. My clients love documents as well. So that is there for you in my free school community, Essence Essentials, in the free resource vault. And I invite you to join us there. It's going to be awesome. Every single month, there's going to be content drops of photography and video to help you streamline content creation if that's what you do. There are graphic templates in Canva. And then, of course, you don't want to miss out on those monthly consultation calls where we can deep dive into anything. You get 1 hour of my time every month for completely free of a content strategist expertise, and I would love to help you in whatever you're dealing with. So I invite you to head over to Essence Essentials School Community. I would love to have you there. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.